Apologize, technical difficulties.
Slip is a terrifying moment when reality seems to tear open, dropping a person into another era without warning, often one that feels wrong, empty, or disturbingly alive. People who experience time slips describe the shift as instant and absolute. The air changes temperature, sounds vanish, colors drain or intensify, and suddenly they're standing in a version of the world that shouldn't exist. It might look like the past, but not exactly the past they know. Buildings are twisted or decayed, people look out of place or strangely unaware, and the atmosphere carries an unsettling sense that you don't belong there. Most slips last only seconds, but those seconds can feel stretched, heavy, and suffocating. Some report that the figures they see move oddly, too slow, too fast, or not quite human. Others hear whispers behind them in a language they can't place. And when the slip ends, it snaps back violently, leaving them gasping in the present, unsure of what was real and what followed them back. While science attributes these events to glitches in perception or brief neurological misfires, many believe something far darker is at play. Overlaps between timelines, thin spots where reality frays, or moments when the past and present collide. In these stories, time isn't a straight line, it's a maze. And sometimes, without warning, you step into the wrong corridor and hope it lets you out again.
Hey, welcome
Hello.
back, Kahanu.
What's going on, Skipper?
We had a couple hiccups today, but we're here and we've got this thing going.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Veteran Nation Unexplained.
Hopefully TC will be joining us. We just ran into a couple issues. Actually, I think we have them.
Yeah, I'd be
Okay.
here.
We can hear you.
Awesome.
So yeah, everybody, thanks for your patience. I don't know. I was talking to the guys just fine, and then I lost sound. I thought it was a setup. I thought we were having a sound slip.
It's the government. They don't want us talking about this. And we all know that TC is the world's biggest government lover.
So we've got an interesting subject today. We're going to be talking about time slips.
And for those of you that are gainfully employed, unlike, never mind.
I actually love
when we
this.
say time slips, we're not talking about that piece of paper that you used to have to,
Yeah, you're not your time card.
Yeah. So, but yeah, everybody, make sure that you're sharing this out, liking it, coming back and rewatching it, sending any veterans that you might know that have strange stories that don't involve the barracks porn librarian or
drunken nights out in Kadena.
But actual unexplained stories or things that they believe were unexplained. Make sure you send them our way. Our guest today is someone that I know personally. We started talking about strange and unexplained things because he has a bumper sticker or a window sticker on the back of his SUV of a Bigfoot family. So I said, "So do you believe?" And that got us going, and we started talking about time slips and quantum physics. And I told AVA, I told Kahanu that we were going to be talking about quantum physics, and he tried to back out of the show. He keeps talking about it. So yeah, so this is Unexplained, and this is not Vet Nation Live. We're not going to be talking politics. We're not talking politics. We are definitely not talking what the hails today. So chat, you guys feel free to talk about whatever you want, as long as it's got to do with strange and paranormal, preternatural, supernatural things. Yes, we are silencing you. So Skipper, we've been going for almost 11 minutes. We should probably go before Chad passes out from boredom. So you want to bring him in?
All right, welcome, Chad.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey guys,
I think we have a little bit of a delay.
We are professional.
Yeah, I think where he's just having a little bit of an issue with his internet.
Well, he might be time slipping.
Ooh, yeah.
So, Chad, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll get into your experiences with time slips.
I think Chad froze up on us already. So I don't. So it's okay, Chad. It's no.
Can you hear me?
Skipper, that's not funny. Oh.
So just, I don't know what, I've never had experience with time slips, and I had to look it up online to see if that was the same thing as deja vu. I know a lot of people have deja vu, but it's actually not the same thing.
No, deja vu is well, depending on who you talk to, deja vu is a one camp in particular thinks that deja vu is a form of precognitive functioning, that everybody has a little bit of precog in them. Okay, go ahead and make your jokes. I'm waiting. Come on, Skipper. I know you. So some people think that people that experience deja vu are having a precognitive function of some sort or experience of some sort, and then there are people who think that deja vu is a form of memory recall, and that bleeds into quantum physics aspect. So when they talk about deja vu being a form of memory recall, what they're actually saying is that somehow you've slipped close enough to the very thin barrier between the different dimensional or multiversal existences, and you are recalling a memory from an altar, one of your altars in another multiverse,
Another timeline.
another part of the multiverse, another timeline. And so, but oh, man, that soundboard, my
Oh man! And then, from what I was reading, time slip is somebody is experiencing it at that moment, and it's not a memory, I guess you'd say, or the precognition.
No, it's neither a memory issue or a precognition, where these people who have had these experiences, these time slip experiences, will attest to you that they didn't just like slip into another time or another dimension for in and out in seconds. They'll some of your more detailed time slips, people have actually gone out and walked in their like downtown neighborhood, area, and have they recognize it as being, especially when they have historical time slips where they go back in time, they'll be walking in their neighborhood and it looks just like their neighborhood, only older, old cars, old lighting, old old ladies. So but they experience it, like they're there, they're physically experiencing it, they're interacting with people. And then there are some that they can't explain because they appear to be slipping forward in time.
I think the most famous one was the gentleman who wrote about the Mothman prophecy. He, the whole thing with the Mothman started with him driving from the DC area to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and he did it in a matter of 45 minutes. And anyone who's made that drive know that's like a 3 to 4 hour drive. And
Skipper, is your air conditioner running?
no, that would be Chad's. It's his audio.
Chad does not have an air conditioner going on. I guarantee that right now. So Chad, since you seem to be here now,
Uh-oh.
And see, I think Chad's just messing with us at this point. Are you on your phone, Chad?
Yeah, that's a bad delay. I think we have.
Sorry.
I wonder.
Can you guys hear
No,
me?
you don't. We can hear you. Trust me, Kahanu's done far worse. Like we had to make him restart his phone. I'm gonna do that. Like you're catching up now.
There we
Here's
go.
one. Here's one. When's the last time
You guys can hear me?
Yeah, are you? Yeah, try on your phone. See if your phone will do better for you.
Let me send him the link on his phone. So then he can get it. That way.
Because I know one of his stories, but I don't want to tell it. So,
So a real popular one that I came across when I was going online is about these two sisters. I can't remember the exact date, but they were in, I believe, France, and they experienced a time slip when they were touring Versailles, and they went across a bridge and saw some people dressed in that period clothing. And when they came back to reality or their current timeline, the bridge wasn't even there.
Look at what you must have been using your laptop.
I was using my laptop. Was that?
That's amazing that it was the laptop that was the problem and not the phone, because normally it's Kahanu's phone. We had to make him restart it once, and I asked him, "Hey, have you restarted your phone lately?" And I swear to God, I'm not making this up. Not in 2 years. So
yeah, that could cause a problem potentially.
Yeah, it potentially was a problem for darn sure. So Chad, we are professionals here, as you could tell by all of our technical issues. So I was don't know if you heard, but I did tell people that we do know each other on a personal level in real life, and that, I asked you about your Bigfoot sticker on the back of your car, and which is a different show altogether, and that got us talking about preternatural, supernatural things, and that led to you volunteering that you have actually had at least 2, if not more, experiences with time slips, which of course then I immediately said, have you taken your medication? So
fair question.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, and not with all the personal, deep details, but just a little bit of who you are and where you were skeptically or somewhat convinced about some of these issues, and then kind of launch into your first experience with time slips. And I'm going to remind everyone, Kahanu's the host, so I'm going to just sit back and watch Kahanu flounder now.
Yeah, and everybody remember, we're not scientists, and we're just going off of what we personally know. So don't take everything for truth.
Right. No, I think that's the best way to explain any of this stuff, right? Or kind of start with that personal foundation. I mean, there's a lot of things, a lot of people online that claim to be connected to different things, and those things. I mean, I would take it all with a grain of salt and use your own judgment as you listen to anyone. But again, my name's Chad. I'm just a regular person, right? And just like all of you guys. And I appreciate you guys bringing me onto the show, and I'm not a veteran myself, but I have a ton of respect for all you guys. So thanks to all 3 of you for your service, and to all of your your channel subscribers and listeners for their service. It's greatly appreciated. I'm just interested in the unexplained generally. And so Todd and I kind of started talking. He asked me about the Bigfoot bumper sticker on the back of my car and whether or not that is indicative of my Bigfoot hunting, It's not. The other vinyl sticker on the back of the vehicle says hide and seek champion, right? With a Bigfoot image underneath it, right? So, I mean, that said, I am interested in the unexplained, but for me, it really is like, what are my personal experiences? And then how does that intermingle with science? Because I have a, kind of a firm belief that science is directly correlated to a lot of the unexplained and the things that people would claim to be spiritual, right? And those types of experiences that they personally experience and that I've experienced. So one of the things that I've experienced regarding time slips specifically, a lot, quite frankly, a few of them kind of happened during my childhood, right? And so, I think if you look at these theories about how time and space interconnect, and how these experiences kind of come through the piercing of the veil, right, or any of those things. A lot of them happen to children, and kids, and I think that has something to do with our minds not being convinced that we are in a certain place and time, and that everything is just static, right? So I think just being open-minded, and kids see things and hear things that maybe we don't as adults, right? So, but one of the experiences was I was 6 or 7, and I was actually visiting um, Arizona with my parents, and we were in a ghost town, and kind of walking through, it was there was a tour I think going on with that, but there was one of the buildings that um, we walked into, or I walked in first. My parents were kind of um, out on the outer side of the building, and I walked in and I turned to my left and immediately saw two gentlemen that were dressed in cowboy gear, right? I mean, cowboy hats, sitting at this table. And it kind of startled me because there wasn't really supposed to be anyone in there. There were other people outside that were kind of walking through the town, checking things out. So I kind of immediately just turned and walked out. And my dad was there, and he's like, what's wrong? And I mean, you could see I was kind of startled. And I said, well, there are two guys in here, two men. And so we walked back in and turned, and they weren't there. So, that was one of the things that my dad proceeded to think I was, I'm sure, crazy, and was probably pretty concerned. But I mean, that's one example, right? And so in thinking back on that, and at the time, I remember thinking like, what did I just see? Like they were here, you know. Um, but there again, that's one example of something where if you look at how science would explain some of that, and really quantum physics, and again, I'm not a scientist or a quantum physicist. I've researched on my own just kind of certain things, but Einstein would call it spooky things happening at a distance. Okay, so what does that mean? I don't know. I mean, it means that things are connected in some way.
Seems like such a under explanation for someone as smart as Einstein.
Kind of. Well, and partly because I think what I've researched, he couldn't explain it, and for someone who, was supposed to be able to explain a lot of our reality and a lot of things, yeah, he couldn't explain that.
What makes you think that experience when you were 6 was a time slip versus experiencing maybe apparitions or ghosts?
Oh, I don't know that the two are totally disconnected, Todd, to be honest. I mean, from my experience, I mean, I think time slips would be, to me, and what I've researched is like a going back in time, or experiencing a reality that is, not of the present moment. So that could be future correlated. I mean, I thought your lead in was kind of interesting. I kind of chuckled when I was watching it. It felt very ominous. Um, and I don't know that my experience was an ominous feeling. It was more just kind of, it felt like I was in a different place in time. So does that mean that they were ghosts? I don't know. I mean, could be, or could it be that it was, just like some have explained, or I guess tried to explain, as the veil becoming thinner in reality, and you're able to see something that you're not actually presently part of. I don't know.
Do you think that perhaps there's certain areas in the world that the veil is thinner, like for instance, like on ley lines?
Personally, I do. I mean, I think there are places that are pretty well known throughout the world. In North America, one of those places would be Sedona, Arizona, right, as considered an energy vortex, right? And so, I mean, when you think about energy, that's another whole thing, right? I mean, just the fact that we're made of energy, right? When it comes down to it, and matter, clearly. Um, but yeah, I think there are places, and then that's that feeling that we get inside, right, when we're in those areas or those spots, that just feels different. I don't know that it feels off or wrong or anything like that. It's just it feels different. You can sense it,
It's
and that's our intuition, I guess.
it's funny that you mentioned Sedona, which is where Red Rock National Park is, because there's actually a theory out there that the government has set aside the land for national parks along the lines where there's lots of vortices. And I live right next to one. I live right next to Joshua Tree National Park. Have you heard that theory? And also, I've heard where that explains a lot of the disappearances in the national parks.
Huh.
Well, I mean, I think in as far as the government's intervention or interaction with it, I really don't have a lot of knowledge on that particular piece of it. But I would say that, it's what's interesting about all of those areas is that you've got people from all walks of life, different ages, backgrounds, cultures that experience similar things within those areas, those energy areas, whether that be seeing something paranormal, right? Whether that be experiencing, a visual or an audio thing happening. Yeah, I mean, I think the feeling of being in those areas, I've felt that personally. That definitely the energy is different than what I guess normal place would be. I think the idea of ley lines and energy grid across the earth, that spills more into kind of the spiritual realm, I think, where people experience things spiritually. I certainly have in different ways, but again, I don't think that's unique or all that strange, quite frankly. I mean, I think it's a lot of us. When you think about the term "trust your gut," well, I think that's a legitimate thing. Like, when we have a feeling something's off or wrong, I mean, a lot of times it ends up being off or wrong. So what is that? I think that's our intuition, or our ability to tune into an energy in that area, maybe, and interpret it.
And I do agree with you when you were saying that you were saying you were around 6 or 7 years old. Children do have this. They don't have the blockages that we have that when we grow up. I don't know the correct term for it, but I think you understand.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, because look, our brains, and so, some of the medical world would say that when we see something, or we think we see something that's not there, right? That would be some neurological slip, right? Some sort of brain hiccup, I guess, if for lack of a better descriptor, at least what I've researched. And so, could that be? That's possible. That's possible, right? Our
Right.
brains are not. We don't organize our brains to be in chaos, right? Typically, to be anything outside of kind of an orderly way to view things, right, in a very structured way. And so when something unstructured happens, I think, yeah, that becomes unexplained. I think that there's a lot less structure in a child's mind versus an adult's mind, right? We have conditioned ourselves in a lot of ways to really be stable. I mean, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I mean, we need to be stable in our day-to-day lives and interactions with most most things. But yeah, I think kids are open to seeing and experiencing things that we probably have either shut down as not um, capable of even happening, or just the fact that it's scary. Maybe we don't want to allow our minds to go there. That's okay too. I can understand that.
Well, we spend a lot of time, with kids when encouraging their imaginations when they're young. Um, we, oh, isn't that neat? Tell another story. Who are you talking to? And oh, it's my friend. And then, oh, that's cute. Um, my poor daughter, she's had experiences with a couple of her kids that like they're sitting in the corner, literally having a conversation with someone, and my poor daughter has, having like the unfortunate occasion to be raised by me, um, immediately went, okay, this is creepy, and, and it's encouraged that kids eventually will give up their imaginary friends. They'll give up the imagination of having a conversation with someone um, that is very difficult for people to, fathom after you get to a certain age of being able to return to that. And when somebody does say, "Oh yeah, I've had this experience where I've had a conversation with someone," and to realize that that person disappeared right, like literally right in front of my eyes, or I turned my back and then turned back less than a second later and that person was gone. And your first response to that is, oh, this person's losing their mind. And, or they didn't develop that prefrontal cortex the way they should. And so they still kind of believe in imaginary friends and whatnot. And so we immediately rushed to try and come to some sort of conclusion that this must be explained away either by medicine or by science. And so then along comes something like quantum physics and says, "Hey, we might actually be able to explain this through scientific study and means." And everybody then immediately dismisses quantum physics because they're trying to, have these conversations from an actual scientific perspective that can explain, like, maybe this person really did slip through time, but just not in the way that we view it, because the vast majority of people that we talk to in the real world view time as incredibly linear. There's the past, there's the present, and then there's the future. And we can look back along the timeline of the past and understand that these things happened then. And we can look at the present in the moment and realize that this is happening. And we can even draw conclusions about what's going to happen in the future based on our observations of the present and the past. But we cannot step outside of it and imagine looking at the timeline from above or from the side or from below while also being present in time. Think about that for a bit. You step outside of your current timeline while you're still present in time, looking at the entirety of the timeline, and that's quantum physics.
My brain
Yeah.
hurts.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, man. Well, look, I mean, when you talk about imaginary friends for kids, right? I mean, at what age is it not okay? I mean, because when you look at a little kid, let's just say a 4-year-old that's got an imaginary friend. I mean, a lot of studies would say the studies that I've read have said that that's an indication of intelligence, right? But then, at what point does it go from an indication of intelligence to, uh-oh, there might be something mentally wrong with this individual, right? And that's an interesting kind of thing to me, because that's like, okay, well, what age are imaginary friends no longer okay? I mean, I think we could all probably say in our minds what that age might be. I mean, what do you guys
Well, I'm not even sure that Skipper and Kahanu are real. So
think?
I don't know. That's a good question because society views it differently for children than it does for adults.
Right.
Right.
So like
So now we
right.
have to have a conversation about defining adult, which there again, I'm not even sure that Skipper and Kahanu.
Mentally or physically, right?
Yes.
But I mean, Kahanu, do you have kids?
Yes, sir. I do. I got
Okay.
two, and they're both on the spectrum. So I think about that a lot too. Is like my youngest has conversations at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I freak out because I'm trying to figure out who is she talking to this early in the morning.
Right. Right. Well, and you look at, I don't know, there's just the idea that kids are encouraged to use their imaginations, right? I mean, Todd, you were talking about that. I mean, I think we encourage that, but then at some point along the way, we kind of stop encouraging it. It's not that we stifle it necessarily, but I don't think we're as, it doesn't conjure a feeling of happiness to think about, a kid at a certain point talking to someone or something that's
I
not
actually
there theoretically.
I disagree with your premise there a little bit, Chad, that
Okay,
we
yeah,
don't
let me
stifle.
hear it.
We do stifle it. We intentionally stifle it, um, especially the imaginative side, because you will hear people say, you know, to a child who appears to have this extremely powerful, well-formed imagination, and I do mean that well-formed. There is something about a well-formed imagination. The most gifted storytellers, not people who are giving you accounts of historical events, but people who are very gifted storytellers who can make up a story, not lie, but actually make up a work of fiction on the fly in a very impromptu, extemporaneous way. We will look at them and go, look, you're never going to be Mark Twain. You're never going to be, you know, whoever this dramatic presenter is. So you need to stop. You're never going to be successful. You're never going to be a Stephen King. You're never going to be a Anne Rice, or you're never going to be F. Scott Fitzgerald. So you need to grow out of the idea that you're going to be that person and, buckle down, study, focus. Or, in some cases, we look at those same people and we'll actually tell, athletes that it's okay for them to pursue something that they're never going to be successful at. Ever. Like, we'll tell people in junior high and high school, excuse me, middle school. We don't have junior high anymore. Middle school and high school, yeah, pursue those athletic endeavors because that's tangible. It's incredibly tangible. We want people to be athletes because it's healthy to be competitive. It's healthy to be involved in an athletic way, and it might help you get through college. You might get a scholarship. You might end up playing in college. But the further along you go, people will still encourage you, but also remind you that less than 0.1% of people actually ever get picked to play professional sports ball. And yet and Skipper, I know Skipper can kind of have a precognitive moment and understand where I'm going with this. But those same people who maybe were incredibly athletic, but knew they were never going to play at the college level or the collegiate level or the professional level, are still like wrapped up into it. And they know all the stats, they know all those things, and nobody ever looks at them and tells them to stop. But boy, this person over here is 35 years old, and they might be sitting at home cranking out short stories that they maybe never share or don't share with anybody but their closest friends. Like, they're like, okay, come on, man, it's time to grow up, let it go. And I think that's a lot of why we look at people who like you who talk about having a time slip experience and say, half jokingly, are you on your meds? Did you take your medication? And that's been kind of the focus of what Kahanu wanted was, I want to be able to have these open conversations, right, Kahanu? Like with people who've
Right.
had these experiences that are unexplained and not make them feel freaking crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that everybody's worried about when they have an unexplained event happen with them involved. They don't know who to talk to, and even your closest friends might, "Hey, are you on your meds, man?"
Well, I mean, present company included, it's probably a fair question for all of us, not Chad, but for the veterans. Like, are you on your meds? Have you seen your therapist? I mean, so, but um,
Well, yeah,
Kahanu,
Todd.
go ahead, Chad.
No, I mean, don't you guys think that some of that is just this human infatuation with control, right? I mean, it's like we just want to control things. I mean, it's just so whether that be your child's career path or sports endeavors or you know um, or just the fact that, like when we don't understand something, I mean, it's easier to condemn it. That's easy, right? I mean, that's the easiest thing to do is to look at someone and say, well, I don't understand that, so I'm just going to say it's not normal, right? Or it's abnormal, if not normal. And I think that is that part of that human condition of control. I mean, we just desperately seek control, and quite frankly, there are, I think everyone, whether it be a paranormal experience or not, has an experience with wanting to control a situation and it being completely out of our control. I mean, I think that is a big part of our psyche, and I don't think you're wrong, Todd. I think that there are a lot of things that we do to stifle growth. Um, and maybe the reason is that we just can't give up that piece of control in our minds to allow something like that to be possible.
Well, veterans in particular are very much control freaks. We are we spend all this time like operate. Even those of us that haven't been in combat, like in combat zones or conflict zones, like Skipper and Kahanu have been. We spend all of our time in controlled chaos, and then we get out, or even like what my former career after the military and some time in retail work in that law enforcement world. You spend all of your time in controlled chaos. You want control. And so then you take somebody, especially an adult who has the kind of experience that you did at 6, where you literally experienced something that happened, and now you advance that from 6-year-old Chad to 36-year-old Chad, and have Chad had that same experience. And Chad's not going to walk up to TC and go, "Hey, let me tell you about this experience I just had last week." You're going to be like, "Nope, not telling anybody that story at all. Never. Nope." And and so that wasn't 6-year-old Chad's experience. That wasn't the only one like that you had.
No, no. And as I kind of got older, I mean, I've had a few different, I guess what I think are ghost experiences, which aren't all that different from what I kind of described earlier. I think there seems to be a time period at play. Like there was a point in time in my, I guess it was high school age. I was probably 16 or 17, and saw a woman from behind that was in my house at the time.
No,
Um,
Skipper. No.
that, yeah, not what you're thinking, Skipper. But she was in like period dress, like she had like a Victorian dress on, okay, and was sort of semi-transparent, right? So that's what I experienced in that moment, and when I went to say something, I turned away because I didn't really want to see it. It was scary to me in the moment, and so when I look back, she was gone. So what was that? I don't know. What that was. It was not something I was looking for at the time, I'll say, right? I mean, it wasn't like I was on a ghost hunt or anything like that, but
You know,
experienced it.
Kahanu brought up the story of the 2 girls in Paris. Paris, yeah. That
Right.
that's one of the more popular ones where they were together and had that experience. And that's really hard for people to, perspective-wise, for people to address. because now you have two people saying like we've had this mutual experience. But a lot of the time slip situations, or viewing something, they happen individually, and it's very easy to dismiss the individual's experience. And it's kind of like, could you imagine an entire you know company of soldiers or Marines, driving down a road in Afghanistan or Iraq, and all of a sudden they're they're in the same town, they're in Baghdad or whatever, and instead of being surrounded by buildings and old cars sitting on the side of the road, now they're surrounded by people riding camels and horses, which would be an awful lot like Iraq anyway. So never mind that example. But no, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by people that look like Bedouins everywhere, and you're like, and then 10 seconds later, or maybe less, you're right back into the world you were in. Like, if those soldiers or those Marines or whatever went back and reported, hey, this happened, they would immediately be pulled from the battlefield. What have you guys been smoking? You guys sharing drugs in the barracks at night, and it's a safe bet they probably are. But that's our response to the individual or even groups when they report having had these strange spectral experiences. When you think about time slips, and there again, most of us have never met anybody who's had one. When you start to draw in the idea of quantum physics on that, what we now know that quantum physics has, and science has verified things that we would have at one time thought were not real, like dark matter, antimatter. These, what a lot of people refer to as negative spaces. So we now know there is dark matter out there. Black holes were considered to be theory, but now they're fact. What would you, besides it just being something along the lines of ley lines or whatever, do you think that time slips could be explainable in a scientific perspective, as literally crossing, up that barrier, not just a veil, but just like crossing a barrier, just for, even for a brief amount of time? And do you think that explains the fear that a lot of people experience? Like, because when and I know you've read up on it and studied it, but you hear a lot of these stories, and Kahanu said that he's been doing a lot of digging on this. Is there a reality in which people experience a fear because they're like, I'm someplace that I recognize but don't recognize, and I'm afraid I'm going to get trapped here? That's a recurring theme in all of these stories. And go ahead.
No, I just think when you look at quantum physics, which again, I'm not a physicist, I'm not a scientist, right? So this is just based on what I've
You're
researched.
also not quantum.
That too. But that said, quantum physics. So the idea of quantum entanglement. I mean, I would encourage your listeners to just research it online and see what you find. But basically, it's the idea that two particles are connected to each other somehow, and that one particle spins this way creates an immediate, instantaneous effect on the other particle spinning this way as well, right? So that one particle connects to the other, and this could be in different places, geographic places. And I mean, science has proven this, literally proven that one particle connects to another somehow, and its spin can directly impact the spin of the other particle in a completely different place and time. So that said, I mean, that's where I think it gets murky, and I think science is still trying to figure it out. But
the entire audience is right now going, what? Did he just say?
No, exactly. But it's hard to wrap your head around, man. I mean, it is. It's tough, right?
Well,
It's like, okay, well, how does that actually work? I mean, that's what science is, I think, still really trying to figure out.
in our conversation, wasn't it? I think it was you and I where we talked about the reality that you never actually touched something.
Well, that's the truth. I mean, that is a verifiable scientific
Like
truth.
it looks like I'm touching this. There's this reaction. There's an action and a reaction, but scientifically, like I am not touching this very nice Acacia wood spoon that I got from Rise Coffee, mushroom coffee, which, by the way, we're not sponsored, but we would love to, either on my channel or here. But I'm not touching this, but I am, because I'm manipulating it. But I'm not manipulating it through touch. I'm manipulating it through the movement of particles. That's it. It's particles and this ultimately isn't even solid. It's not solid. It's a bunch of particles that are clinging together through atomic energy. But when you get down on the atomic level, you could pass right through this. So why would it be impossible for 6-year-old Chad on an atomic level to slip into another time stream for a second and slip right back? Because of the quantum entanglement, because those particles are, you got sucked into something, and it's mind-boggling. And for people to say, no, it doesn't happen, or I've got the answers, I'm like, okay.
Sometimes I think that I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with the Hadron Collider, CERN.
We just talked
I
about
think.
it the other day. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think they're probably experimenting with all of this. Who knows what kind of developments they've come up with, as far as bending atoms or passing through them, phasing through objects, teleportation, or bringing other realities into our own reality.
Well, look at lasers.
Yeah.
Right. What's a laser? A laser can hurt you. Lasers, I mean, not just blind you. Lasers can hurt you. Lasers can cut holes into things. We see it with laser engraving.
Right, and that's particle manipulation, right?
Yeah.
All right, zip it.
Well, and a laser emits photons, right? So I don't. Have you guys ever seen anything about the dual slit experiment? No.
I have, but go ahead. This is fascinating. I have to go touch up my coffee.
The dual slit experiment, and there's a lot of information online about it, so you could certainly research it. But basically, what they have is basically a sheet of paper or material that's got two slits cut into it, and what scientists have done is they fire a laser at these two slits. Well, when you think about what you would imagine happening is the laser particles, the photons, pass through these two slits and then are projected onto the wall behind it. Okay, and what you would imagine happens is that these particles go through and it creates light and shadow on the wall. And what actually is happening is these waves. What they say is happening is these waves are going through, creating a pattern of light that they're actually a series of light and dark bands. So not exactly what your brain would think of it in terms of how that would project onto the wall. And the interesting thing is that when they go to observe this, so record it or observe it, the pattern changes. And so the idea is that by observing a particle, it causes the behavior of that particle to change. So again, this is really deep stuff, but I mean, what's interesting about it is just our observation of something the idea that our observation of something can change what happens actually happens to that particle as we observe it, versus if it were to happen unobserved. So, does a tree fall in the forest if you don't hear the sound? Right? I mean, it's just kind of all of those things
Better
kind of
question is,
intermingling.
Chad, are you wrong even if your wife's not there to hear you?
Well, that's you know the answer to that one.
Yes. Yes.
But the dual slit. So Todd, I don't know if you want to talk about the dual slit, but I just think it's fascinating. I mean, again, this is science, you know, throwing things at.
Well, yeah, it's really Skipper, since you're acting in the role of producer right now and generally annoying soundboard guy.
I'm helping.
I am helping. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Get there on that YouTube Google machine and see if you can find a really short video about the dual slit, and use YouTube, Skipper. YouTube, not any other site that you may go to. YouTube. Because there again, there are some videos out there that explain how the you cannot wrap your mind around what they're trying to say with that experiment until you actually watch them do the animation of it.
Would you say that by observing it, we're seeing that these particles or atoms are sentient?
I don't know about sentience.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it's. I think it's saying that a particle observed behaves differently than a particle unobserved, which is just really crazy to think about, right? It is incredible.
Yeah. Oh, Skipper found one.
Okay.
Yeah, hold on here. I'm gonna put it to where we're all. There we go.
And here we are, the granddaddy of all quantum weirdness, the infamous double slit experiment. To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, two bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands.
This is going to blow your mind.
What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave. It doesn't make sense.
That's
But
good, Skipper.
physicists are clever. They thought maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. But physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched. And it was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange, never world of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave function simply by observing.
Yep, there. So, right, exactly. Observation in and of itself is not merely observation. It is functionally changing the environment.
I always
Yeah, I
feel
mean-
like somebody's watching me.
Which proves that if a tree falls in the woods and no one's there to see it, or hear it, the answer to that question is yes and no.
My brain is melting.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? I mean, it's a lot to even. So how does the idea of how does it actually translate? That's where the brain melts, right? That's where my brain melts, right? Like, how does this actually translate into our day-to-day life and actually observing things happening, right?
It's the old experiment that we've tried to explain to people. There, I have to remember stage left versus stage right when you're on camera. But it's like you draw a straight line on a piece of paper, across this paper, it's 12, let's say this is 12 miles. So it's going to take you a certain amount of time to cross 12 miles. But if you fold the paper, you're still traveling 12 miles. You've still gone from point A to point B. Your distance has not changed. What's changed is the time. That's it. And to me, this is the explanation of time slips. Something came in, folded time, and caused you to pass through time in a way that's unexplainable to other people. You pass through time because something folded that time stream, and
Using your example of the paper, it's like if you were to get a flip book with a cartoon, it would be like if you could flip through and see the cartoon moving, but you went from page 50 to page 1.
But you didn't at the same time.
Yes.
You just it and that's when you look at the dual slit experiment. Like there's like they can't observing the dual slit, you don't even know if actually what you're viewing in that reality is actually happening because your observation has changed what's actually happening.
I mean, it's kind of along the lines too of, you know, when you've got multiple people, and then just use a car crash as an example, but you've got 5 people that see a car crash happen, and there are 5 different explanations of what they saw. I mean, that happens a lot, you know, and that's why in like, you know, when you know, police officers take reports of car accidents and those types of things, it's like, well, why is there a little slight difference in terms of what that person saw happening? Well, that I don't know. It's being observed by different people from different angles, and that can, you know, give a different result, you know, potentially.
If there are 5 people observing a car accident and 3 of them are men and 2 of them are women, the general conclusion is going to be that it was the woman's fault. So
Generally, by according to whom? TC?
physics.
Remember, if you'd like to send fan mail to TC, he can be reached at the email.
Yeah.
So,
But no,
so
yeah,
that's to me is what we're dealing with, especially with time slips. I don't think you're dealing with something supernatural. I think you're dealing with time slips. You're dealing with something that exists within the realm of quantum physics and is actually, you know, for lack of better terminology, exploiting and exploring time streams. And
Right.
I would, you know, I would even go so far as to suggest, like you did when you say you saw this Victorian era woman, a lot of people's experiences where they're seeing ghosts. Now, there again, you know, we've talked about stone tape theory to some degree on the show in the very first episode, but setting aside stone tape theory for ghosts, I think a lot of what people experience as ghosts are probably more explainable through quantum physics in that you are slipping into this other time stream or that other time stream has slipped into your time stream, and the very act of observation has now changed the both realities, because now you're different than you were prior to that experience, and they're different, especially if they've observed you. They're different now because of that experience, because of observation. And that has now caused these ripple effects, that interference that he was, you know, the animated man was telling us about, that has caused a ripple effect across multiple you know, and I don't even like to use the term dimensions because it's not dimensional. And people are like, well, isn't the multiverse just us talking about dimensions? No, there's a difference between dimensions and the multiverse. And so you've caused this ripple effect across multiple realities. And that raises the question for people who are, you know, religious, spiritually religious, not just just spiritual in the sense of I believe there's a spirit world, but Christians and Muslims and practicers of Judaism and Hinduism and all of these others where okay, I believe in, let's say I believe in a creator God and he gave us this world, but what are all these other worlds? And like it's it to me, there's such a closed-mindedness to especially, there's two camps of religion, the atheistic religion and spiritual religion. There's a large section of people that are incredibly closed-minded to think that God only created one timeline and that's all there is. And atheists are like, well, there is no creator, but there is literally just one timeline. And both sides are so closed-minded that they don't realize how much they agree in their closed-mindedness that they can't explain what they can't conceive of. And therefore, because they can't explain what they can't conceive of, that cannot exist. Which in itself is inexplicable. Just inexplicable.
But yet you'll have a quote unquote religious person believe in angels but not ghosts, right? I mean,
Right.
that's the kind of stuff for me that is kind of like, okay, well, so again, we're very selective, right? Human beings are really selective about our viewpoints and our opinions and our faith in different things, right? And so those are the things that I find kind of just kind of funny, right? Like, okay, no, that's and I wouldn't condemn anyone for believing in any sort of thing, especially in things that are largely positive to their life, their life force, right? I mean those are the things we want, people to promote. But yes, I mean those are the things that I find just kind of very stark, and saying that, hey, I believe I have a guardian angel that watches over me, and protects me from different things, yet my friend who claims to have seen a ghost, well, they're crazy.
Right.
I don't know.
Kahanu, is your brain still melting?
No, I'm just trying to grasp onto it. A lot of this stuff is pretty new to me. I haven't really thought about time slips or quantum entanglement over the
You mean
last
you
2
just
weeks.
don't walk around talking about quantum entanglement with people on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
No, it's all really interesting to me because, like Chad was saying earlier, a lot of this is just it's intertwined and it's all singular. It's one thing happening at the same time.
Well, look at your green screen generated background. Yeah, is it real?
To somebody,
No, is it real? It's
no.
real. Yes, it is. That picture is real. You're sitting in front of a real picture. You're present in that presence right now. But you're also in your garage.
Right. I can travel the multiverse.
But that image has been captured and superimposed. And if you go back, 30 years to, Skipper will know this because he's a nerd when it comes to like Hollywood stuff. When did we first start hearing about green screens for like film production? Star Wars was one of the first places.
Yeah, they actually had a different thing that they used, which was more of a yellow screen for Mary Poppins. But that technology was lost, and ironically, this year created. But yeah, it was in the 70s really when green screen started becoming a major thing.
Right. So if you go back to just, let's just say between Mary Poppins and Star Wars, when they, you started to see the use of green screen, people would have, they would have been, baffled how did you make that happen? Well, it's happening. It's literally happening. Quantum physics says that you just created an entirely new experience. And each experience that you've created is different based on the observation of that experience of the individual. And it was Ray Bradbury, and I can't remember the name of the story. But he created the term the butterfly effect. And basically what it came down to is, in this story, here's this imaginative man, how'd you like to be the person that was telling Ray Bradbury, of all people, grow up, stop that, you're never going to be famous, right? He creates this story where people can travel back in time, which is a time travel. They go back to hunt dinosaurs, but to not impact the timeline, they only kill dinosaurs right at the moment where they would have died of natural causes in the first place. But as they are about to leave from this dinosaur hunt, one of the characters steps on a butterfly and kills it, which now causes time to spin out of control and has this butterfly effect, thereby changing all of reality, because these people have slipped back into time to hunt dinosaurs, and all of their efforts to not impact the time stream were changed because of that one action of stepping on a butterfly. And we kind of take terms like, oh, it's the butterfly effect. When a butterfly flaps its wings in the jungles of, South America, that causes the wind to change, which then causes a hurricane to rise up. That's not what that term was meant to be about. It was literally meant to be about a little bit of what the movie was, like the butterfly effect movie was about, which was that one thing has an impact that ripples through time, and not just in a physical causative sense, but in a very metaphysical, very quantum physics sense of, you just don't know when you start monkeying around with things that you don't understand what kind of impact that you can have. So,
or even when you monkey around with things you do understand. I mean, just think about everyday choices that we all make, right? Every single choice we make changes our path, everything from, deciding to go to the grocery store at the time you do, and then you get into a car accident. Had you not decided to go, at that point in time, and stayed home and watch TV, that wouldn't have happened, right? Like, those types of things are pretty crazy to think about too.
What's the series of movies about people trying to escape their death? It turned into a whole series of sequels. Final Destination. Final Destination. So the whole I had a vision that my plane was going to crash, so I'm going to stay home. And so you stay home, and then reality comes for you. It's like you can't escape it. And we laugh because we turn these things into these concepts for movies and novels and graphic, comic books and whatnot. But the reality is like every single decision you make does impact. And I think back to your experience, in this ghost town. And by the way, ghost towns, people are not towns full of ghosts. They're just towns that have been
vacant.
People can I'm all choked up.
I can understand the confusion. I went to an animal hospital once thinking that the doctors would be dogs and cats, and I was
this is why we can't have nice things.
Skipper, you need to move away from that vortex immediately.
Yes. You just move.
That could be a good explanation for me, TC.
No, you don't get a break. You don't.
That
You
and
get
the
no break.
high voltage power lines.
You get no break. But I think to your experience there when you were 6, the question that came to my mind after you and I talked about it the first time, and then I, thought about it again when you were regaling us with that account, was what about those cowboys? What happened to them? What was their experience after, like, when you walked out? Like, you walk in, you see them, they see you, you walk out, you tell your dad, and your dad's like, and I'm not telling tales out of school. You told me that your dad numerous times told you, Chad, don't tell anybody about that.
Yeah, that's true.
Could you imagine these tavern sitting drunk cowboys, that were, sitting there in the old West? They're like, y'all see
They're
that little
probably
boy in
staring at their
here?
glass like, what did I just drink?
Y'all see that little boy just walked in here? He was dressed all sorts of funny. And, and everybody's looking at him like, Dreyfus, what are you talking about? It's like you got to lay off the rot good,
Well, the interesting thing about that, what my memory of that event was that they did look at me, right? Like there was like we looked at each other. There was it wasn't just like an image cast on a wall of two men sitting in chairs, right? It was that there was a like a looking down then looking up kind of moment,
Yeah, there
right?
was this realization, this
Right.
reality of like you, for lack of better terminology, whether you did or didn't, you kind of locked eyes. You observed each other, and that observation now has changed things. Like, who knows, Chad? Maybe the shirt that you're wearing today is a direct result of them having seen the clothes you were wearing, and one of them went on to become a fashion designer.
The possibilities are endless. Oh. No, I think, that's the other thing, I mean, I think when people experience all sorts of different things, everything from, I mean, seeing Bigfoot's a funny one to me, right? Like, so the reason I've got, Bigfoot sticker on the back of my car and on the back of my vehicle and hide and seek champion is because they are. There's never been a verified bone, tooth, follicle of hair.
Chad knows my theory on this, so
that's been verified and found, right? So
it's provoking me now.
So what does that mean? So Todd, what does that mean?
I don't know. When's the last time that you were walking through your backyard and you found the skeleton of a dead raccoon? It just doesn't happen very often. And I regaled Chad with, the reality that, in the chat, without anybody looking it up, put the chat on screen, Skipper. This is a legitimate ask. I want no one to look this up. I want you guys to answer this question from a Eurocentric mindset. How long have we known about the highland and lowland gorillas of Africa?
I know.
No, you shut up. In the chat, everybody give us a time, how many years or what year, without looking it up in Google or anywhere else, ChatGPT or Gemini or anything. How long has European man known about highland and lowland gorillas? Because I guarantee you, most of us, if we're being honest, just assume that we've always known about them. Because we've always known about dogs, and we've always known about cats, and we've always known about, birds. Birds aren't real. Fish aren't real either. But I guarantee you the vast majority of people have no idea that it wasn't. I'm waiting to see, and nobody's answering the question. So either no one's watching, or everybody's like, he told us we can't look it up, so I'm not going to look like an idiot. It was the late 1800s, 1890s into the early 1900s. And in the grand scheme of things, when you look at history of the world, going back to 1890, 1900, and not confirming the existence of an animal like the lowland and highland gorillas until the 1890s and the 1900s, the native population of Africa knew they were there. They just didn't run around talking about it because for them, that was their world. They like, yeah, you stay away from the gorillas. They'll, they can mess you up. And then all of a sudden, white guys show up and they're like, "What in the world is that thing? That's a monster." Well,
Especially since gorillas were originally discovered by Hanno the Navigator, who was a Roman explorer, and he had traveled around Africa, sailing, and discovered gorillas. But then they were lost to us for many years. But the name gorilla still comes from his initial travels.
and and so like all of a sudden, like Europeans are running around going, "We've discovered a new species." No, you didn't. You didn't discover squat. And if something can hide for that long from scientifically minded people without ever being without a body, without hair, without jaw bones or skull fragments or femurs or anything until the late 1890s and 1900s. And you go out and you look around the vast expanse, and Chad and I are both from Minnesota. Down here in my corner of Minnesota, southeast Minnesota, we have an area referred to, and I've brought this up on the show before. Our last episode when we were talking about chupacabra. I could take you down into the big woods, less than 15 miles from my house, and get you lost, and you may never be seen again. Especially if I drop you near a meth cooking factory. But or you go up towards Superior National Forest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just Minnesota. You get into places like Idaho and Montana and Eastern Washington or Western Washington, Vancouver Island, and we've got people in the chat talking. And this isn't an episode about Bigfoot or Sasquatch or, and great apes, but it's the reality of if we can have things that are verifiably real, that we can't explain or we don't know the existence of until, same thing with the giant squid. Everybody says, "Oh, we've always known about giant squid." No. Sperm whalers, they would report killing sperm whale and having these giant suction cup marks on these creatures if you know how big a sperm whale is, something big enough to take on a sperm whale. And they're like, something's down there. And
something the Kraken.
Yeah, really. Like, but we didn't confirm.
Nothing beats a Jet 2 holiday. And right.
I don't get that
reference. Well, I mean, think about the oceans. How much of it's still unexplored? That's mind-boggling, truly. That something like 80 or 85. Don't quote me on this, and someone maybe can look this up. But I mean, 80% plus of the ocean is unexplored. I mean, we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about our own ocean on this planet. Right?
Do we?
That is just well, maybe.
Do we?
Maybe.
You guys know what an anglerfish looks like, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. There have only been 31 found.
Right.
Like that, because they live so deep. So we only see them after they die and wash ashore. And we only have proof of 31 of them.
Wow.
That's like the elusive silver marine on a Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, could there, that's where it's like, well, could there be something that we haven't found clearly? I mean, if you've got 80% of an entire ocean on a planet that is yet to be explored, or whatever the percentage is, again, don't quote me on that, but then clearly there are going to be species of fish and life that we've never seen.
Right. And so if we can have things that we know are down there somewhere or out there somewhere that are probably real, but we just like people have seen them and they just can't, in the water or on land or whatever. Why is it impossible for us to believe that we could be walking in parallel time streams right next to our doppelganger? And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories out there just on YouTube alone of people talking about having seen themselves, having heard themselves calling their own name. What is that? And you got one segment, oh, that's a doppelganger. It's a evil, dark spirit that's trying to take. Is it? I looked in the mirror and I saw myself standing behind my shoulder, and it scared the living crap out of me. And then I looked again and it was gone. Well, here's one for you. When you look in a mirror, are you looking at yourself or are you looking at an alternate you? And I've heard people try and explain that, scientifically, like, well, yeah, it's a mirror. We know what mirrored surfaces are like, right? But you're observing something.
Right.
And what has that spun off? And so it's really difficult for me, we can't even explain all of the things that people have experienced. Now, there's a guy, his name's Todd Standing. He is a researcher who has worked with, multiple biologists and anthropologists who says, I've confirmed I don't just believe in Bigfoot. I know Bigfoot exists. And we look at a guy like that and we say, you must be crazy. And then you talk to somebody who is a layperson who studied quantum physics, and they say, look, I've studied enough quantum physics without being, as Chad has said numerous times, without being a scientist or an expert in this field. I know there are multiple realities out there. And you go, you're just nuts. How can you know that? How do you know there aren't? How can you be so convinced that there are no other realities out there that you could say beyond any reasonable doubt there are no other realities? Which one of us is crazy?
Well, and that's just it too, isn't it? It's like if I see something, Todd, if you go out into the woods and you see something that you perceive to be Bigfoot, there aren't a hell of a lot of rewards for making that public, right? In fact, I would argue that the exact opposite is the case, where there are more detriments, right, than any sort of reward for that. So again, how many people see things that we never hear about?
Next thing,
I mean, that's another.
If you come back from one of those experiences and you start telling that story, next thing you know, you work in a warehouse, Chad.
Well, I mean, I just think it, that our societal norms and those type, and that's why people are infatuated, frankly, too, with getting photographic evidence or audio evidence, right, and all these things to prove the claims. And that's part of what I love about the paranormal or the unexplained, and how the scientific community begins to intersect at different points, because now you are talking about not theoretical, it's theoretical meets physical proof. Right. That's where it gets really interesting for me, just personally, in my, layman's research of these different things.
There, and I had mentioned, this movie when you and I were talking about this the first time. But if you want to really and it's not a scientific approach, and it is an absolutely, if you're the kind of person who doesn't like terror or horror, I do not recommend you watch this. But the movie Event Horizon is an absolutely foundational study in quantum physics and the reality of what monkeying around with quantum physics could look like if you're not careful. It is not a ghost story. It is it is a treatise or treatise a treatise treatise. It's a treatise on don't mess around with things that you don't understand. And you know, in keeping with the theme of both my channel and Vet Nation, hey, U.S. government, could you stop, please? Could you stop, please? That's what we don't need an Event Horizon type situation taking place here in the United States or on the surface of this earth at all.
I do enjoy. There's a couple people who have been talking about some of the things that the CIA has now officially admitted that they've taken into, and according to the CIA, astral projection is real, and they have used it.
Chad and I had mentioned that in our
That's a-
conversation as well.
That's a really big one.
Remote viewing.
Right.
Astral projection, remote viewing. Yep.
Yeah. Project Stargate. Right. Sorry, Project Gateway is something that they've now released. Not only the fact that the government had a whole, just a whole department dedicated to it for remote viewing at the time, but if you just Google the Project Gateway manual, there's actually like instructions on how to bring your mind to a place where you can theoretically, see things that aren't happening. And those are released to the public now. And so those were legitimate government programs that, that they took part in, that they were trying to do remote viewing, and there still are remote viewers in play in different areas of,
The funny
world.
thing about like Project Gateway is you look at that and then you talk to people who have literally experienced MK Ultra, and you take the existence of MK Ultra, you take the existence of Project Gateway, and then you go and you look at the Church Committee, and they got the CIA on record admitting that they developed a heart gun or a heart attack gun that they could cause people to have heart attacks by shooting them in the neck with what amounted to an icicle made out of a poison that was untraceable, or not just in the neck, but, just they could just shoot this little needle of ice into your body, inject this poison into you, cause you to have a heart attack that's untraceable to anything other than a cardiac arrest. And everybody goes, "Oh, come on, that's not." And then you go, "Oh yeah, and by the way, they also admitted to MK Ultra and to Project Gateway." And then all of a sudden, that little heart attack gun seems a lot more feasible in the world of tangible realities. You might actually err on the. You know what? I believe that gun. I don't believe that they actually were doing remote viewing, and it might feel like we're far afield from the idea of time slips, but this is the reality of all of this unexplained stuff, is that some of it is genuinely preternatural. Some of it is genuinely supernatural. Stone tape theory, I think, is a really good example of explaining how some people have these spirit-like experiences, even capturing images of what appear to be spirits. That doesn't necessarily have to be a time slip. Those things are real. And quantum physics may someday explain that for us. Who knows? Maybe we haven't found Bigfoot because Bigfoot knows how to control time slipping. How's that?
Well, that's another thing too, right? Like, so if time slipping is, let's say if time slipping is real, then am I slipping into another time, or is that time slipping into my timeline, right? Or how does all that intersect? I mean, that's really the things that, again, I don't know.
What if the answer is yes?
What if? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm being cheeky, but I'm being serious at the same time. The answer may genuinely be yes. And, like right now, AV8, did he just disappear? Or,
Yeah, I just the whole thing is really fascinating. I think our journey to try to find proof of everything is great because I think that kind of forces the hand of the logic based scientific community to kind of I'm sure I'm trying to imagine that these scientists, as they discover these intersections of what would historically be referred to as a spiritual experience, but being quantifiable, and they could prove certain aspects of it, not all of it, right, but aspects of it. How mind blown are these scientists that are just steeped in logic, that are now forced to kind of spread themselves into the spiritual place, right?
Right.
That I mean, again, and the challenge with the spiritual community, I think I've watched a lot of videos of different, people that are have spiritual knowledge, is that there's not a tremendous amount of proof outside of theory, that coincides. It's when those two worlds collide that I find to be absolutely fascinating.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we're
Definitely.
it, even with all of our technical issues, we're going on an hour and 45, which I didn't know that we'd fill this much time. Not because of you, Chad, mostly because
Because
we
of
are
you.
we are professional. So um, when you look at these experiences that you've had, you know, how do you approach those conversations, with your kids and your family members? Do you keep it to yourself? Do they know that you're sitting down and talking about this today? Did they all leave the house thinking you were having a psychological break, or
Yes, to all of it.
yeah.
Um, no, I mean, no, my family knows about these experiences. I've shared some of these things with my kids, age appropriate, right? I mean, I'm not trying to
Catch them when they're
plant.
3 and just convince them early.
Well, there you go. I mean, I'm not trying to plant seeds either, right? I mean, my experiences are my experiences, and other people will have their experiences, and I think that's what makes this whole journey kind of unique. But yeah, I mean, do I talk about this stuff every day? No, but I'm really interested in it. I mean, I find kind of researching it and hearing about other people's experiences to be really fascinating, and that's just my own kind of curiosity towards things. But yeah, I mean, so there are friends and family that know, like, I'm on here talking about these things today, and also I've shared personal experiences with many of my friends, and I think what's the interesting things to come out of that is to hear about their own experiences, to at least open the door enough so that they're comfortable to talk about it, because I don't think, it's kind of like a judgment free zone, right? I'm not here to judge someone else's experience, and what they believe. I'm here to more kind of understand it better and learn about it. And I think that's kind of probably the standpoint we should all kind of stand on in some capacity, right? To say, okay, well, I'll listen to it. I don't know if I'll prescribe to it or not, but I'll certainly hear about it. And so, yeah, I've certainly, my friends know about some of these experiences, and I've shared a lot of that with them.
So, and Kahanu, your people come from a very spiritual, like all people groups come from a very spiritual perspective. Everybody's a little different, but your your native population in particular, down in the Hawaiian Islands, they very much cling to the old ways in the sense of the spiritual aspect of tradition and culture.
Very
And
much.
um, it, how do you approach that now, with maybe one of the older tribe members, or whatnot? Would could you have a conversation with them and say, hey, look, is it possible that a lot of our ways, a lot of our religion, our spirituality could be an early ancestral embracing of multiple time streams? And
That's a good question. I haven't really thought about asking anybody. Growing up, I did ask my mother about ghosts and stuff, and she didn't discount me. Told me what I saw. I probably saw it, but on the other hand, my father said ghosts aren't real. Those aren't what you saw is a figment of your imagination.
uh, Chad, Darlene asked, if one of your children told you they saw a ghost, what would you explain to them?
Well, I mean, I think if one of my children told me that they saw a ghost, I would probably, ask them to describe what they saw, right? More so to understand what the perspective of it is. I think, there are so many things that we dismiss uh, with our kids that they may be open to more so than our minds are, right? And we talked
Yeah.
about this earlier. Is that, I mean, I don't know that my logical brain would be able to understand everything that they claim to have seen or saw, but also completely dismissing it, I don't think is necessarily healthy for the child, right? I mean, I think you've got to acknowledge they saw something, and I'd be curious to more understand it better. And instead of being scared of it, I think, or shutting it down immediately as a parent, I would probably be more apt to ask them questions, not try to, and also not try to intentionally lead them down a path that coincides with my path. I mean, I think that's the neutral spot as a parent probably is best to address that. That's probably how I would do it.
Yeah, you don't want to always affirm, like, hey, Daddy, I saw a ghost. I'm like, oh, sure you did. I'm glad. Yeah, you probably did. It's probably Grandma. Grandma's not dead. Oh, yeah, about that. No,
Right.
so you don't want to overly affirm anybody, really. You don't want to overly affirm a child. You don't want to
Right.
overly affirm, an adult. You want to ask challenging questions. You want to ask exploratory questions. You want to make sure that you're not just jumping on board. It's in reality, when people have these experiences and they come to you and they want to talk about it, you really have to treat it like you are dealing with somebody who might be experiencing a mental health crisis. And that's the first thing that they tell you is you don't affirm a person in their mental health crisis. When they tell you that they're hearing voices or they're seeing things that aren't there or having conversations that you aren't privy to. The difference is when you're dealing with someone that you know and that you care about, it's what Chad said. You ask questions and you don't immediately try to convince them that what they experienced is wrong. And you don't immediately try to convince them that they're imagining it, because that's going to build a barrier of distrust at that very moment. They won't talk to you again. So if they are actually having these experiences and they're real, they're not going to talk to you. And if they are experiencing something that they might need help for in the future, they're not going to talk to you. It never, the end of that is it never ends well. It doesn't end well. And that's, if somebody comes up to you tomorrow and says, "Hey, I don't know how to explain this, but I was walking downtown and all of a sudden all the cars were from 1945 and there were war bond, posters hanging all over the place, and I was seeing, people dressed in, styles of clothing that you only see show up in movies these days." Don't go, "Okay, what have you been smoking?" Say, "Hey, interesting. Let's have that conversation. Let's talk about it." Um, and then,
Yeah.
if they're having that experience all the time, every day, might be worth having a different conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're talking about a one-off experience that a child has at night in the middle of the night in their bedroom, or something that's happening all the time. Correct. I mean, I think that's definitely, those are differences. But again, too, if children haven't been told that things are real or not real, then they're just perceiving it. That's
Right.
what's really interesting, right? They're literally just absorbing whatever's happening and telling you about it, and that's curious, right?
Darlene says, "Yes, I agree, but when they can describe things specific, you have to believe what they saw." Yeah, you do. I I think a lot of authors out there are really good at describing things that aren't real. But when you read their works, you can, like, how many times have you read a book by somebody, one of your favorite authors, and go, man, this would be so good as a movie, right? And then somebody comes along and does an adaptation of it, and they totally screw it up, by the way. Like,
Mhm.
like, no, and part of that is like people can be very good storytellers, and they can have a periphery experience and be very adept at telling you about that periphery experience. Doesn't mean you have to believe it. But it doesn't mean you have to tell them that they've lost their mind either. It's hey, I did not experience what you experienced, and your description of it is phenomenal, and it's very compelling, but I don't know what it was. So I can't tell you that you did see 1945, small town, Smithville. Doesn't mean you didn't. It just means I didn't see it and I didn't experience it. And that means that we should look into this more. We should talk about this more.
Well, I would just say to any parent, you don't want to stifle your children communicating to you. I mean, I just think that, I mean, anytime they communicate to us, I think we need to embrace that, because at some point or another, they'll be less apt to, right, about different things. And so I think, helping them, I mean, it's more, what do we do with it as adults? I mean, that's the question maybe Darlene's asking. I mean, how do I process that, right?
Right.
And then give them guidance, right? I mean, because that's our job as parents, is to help guide them.
Nancy says to my comment about your favorite author, every Stephen King movie. They're getting better. Actually, I'll bring this up as a book. 11. How exactly did he title it? I have to make sure I get this right, and I'm a huge King fan. But I want to make sure I get it right. If you like to read, or you read through listening, 11/22/63 by Stephen King is a really good exploration of what can be described as time travel or time slips. And it was actually made into a mini series because it was one of the only ways you could actually capture the reality of that book was through a mini series, because of how detailed it is. And even that, it lost a lot of translation. But I would strongly suggest anybody that's interested in, time travel or time slips, read 11/22/63, because it is.
Was that the Langoliers?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was one of his misses. But yeah, it's a very interesting book. But yeah, the series is good too, but read the book first. Do yourself a favor, read the book first. Chad, the next time you're out with the family in the wilderness and you see Bigfoot, you will commit to coming on and telling us about it, correct?
I will. I'll capture evidence on behalf of the scientific community, and I will absolutely tell you guys all about it. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it. It's fun.
Oh, I'm sure that's exactly the way you're going to report this to everyone that you know. That was so fun. I can't wait to do that again.
No, I thought it was great. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I'm interested in, right? It's interesting to me because there aren't definitive answers necessarily, right? And that's also why you have to use your own judgment, right? As you kind of listen to anyone talk about these things.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate it. You have to go back and watch the first 2 episodes to find out that this is probably an example of how shows get better as they go along and not necessarily worse.
I'll do that. I will do it.
So, Chad, I know you got things to do. I have a funny feeling you might have been out late last night.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad actually. Not too bad.
But you live close enough. You didn't have to spend the night, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
See, and I don't go to those things. So, my excuse is I live too far away, and then I can hide in my house away from people. So
no worries. Well, thank you guys.
You go ahead and go, and we'll close up. You could sit in the
All right,
green
very
room
good.
if you want to watch how we finish.
Thank you, Chad.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Now we can talk bad about him. That guy's crazy. No,
Time slips. Wow.
I
sure
really
thing, bud.
enjoyed this show. This was such a good show. Yeah.
No, actually, I really appreciate Chad taking time. I'm actually working on reaching out to several other platforms. Some of them, one of them actually is very big. It's been around for 5 years and they got a massive following. I'm not going to tell you guys or the audience who I'm reaching out to. But I am working out and reaching out to a particular platform that does a lot about vanished people and strange and missing.
You can't say me.
So I'm working on that, and I might be working on getting an email for somebody who does some cryptid research in the Pacific Northwest, who has a big following, and so I'm doing that because, folks, Kahanu was upset. I'm putting him on blast. Kahanu was upset. He was ready to quit. So, and you could sit here and say, why are you telling tales out of school? But I'm putting him on blast. He was ready to quit because he says nobody wants to be on the show and nobody's interested. And Skipper and I had to step in and have an intervention and tell him, look, we were at the time, we were 2 episodes in. If you start a podcast or you start a series like Unexplained or anything else for that matter, I don't care if it's underwater basket weaving for your YouTube channel, because you really love underwater basket weaving, and nobody watches for the first few episodes, you keep going.
Yeah.
You keep going, because sooner or
Build your
later
base.
you're gonna build your base.
And getting guests is the hardest part. Part. We'll have guests booked, and then day of, they're like, "Oh, I can't make it. My kid got sick," stuff like that.
Well, and in chat, and I'm not putting Chad on blast. He was supposed to be on last week.
Oh yeah.
But he got sick.
And that happens.
Things happen, but see, guys like Chad are solid, and they'll come back and say, "Hey, let's reschedule." So that's why we reach out to you guys and say, "Look, if you've got somebody in your life who's had some of these experiences, I don't, if it's MK Ultra, if you know somebody who swears they've had, they went through MK Ultra, trust me, we want to talk to them. We definitely want to talk to them, because that fits right in keeping with
if you think they're crazy, send them to us, because I've learned that crazy is podcast gold.
Absolutely, which is why I've stuck around with Skipper. It's podcast gold, because
that's
Skipper
why I hang around the VA.
Yeah. But
thank you, everybody.
Kahanu, do you have anything coming up? Are you working on anything for your stuff?
No, everything is in limbo right now.
Speaking of limbo, that's a great topic for Unexplained.
Oh yeah,
that would be an interesting one. We can go on about that.
I'm not Catholic, so I don't know anything about limbo. Skipper, what do you got going on? You got any besides your coffees with Skipper on a pretty much a daily basis? You got anything you're working on?
And I'll announce today, I've got a new segment on the show coming out, which would be benefit anyone if you have military members in your family. And you guys can also give me input, Kahanu and PC. It's a segment to help young enlisted people of things your senior military leaders wish you knew.
Right. I could just see the twist that Skipper puts on that.
A lot of them come from real life examples that I experienced.
Any big investigative stuff you got in the works still?
Not so much. There's still a couple stories I'm working on. For those of you who watched me call about the sheriff in Texas, the gentleman that was arrested over the mine has had all charges dropped, and which is good, because we were told to people familiar with it, this is kind of a common thing in that county. They would charge people with crimes, and then a year, 2 years down the road, they quietly drop the charges. This happened because there was so much outcry. We weren't the only ones doing this.
Do you know why? And I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but do you guys know why they do those agencies will do that when they've charged somebody and they know they've charged them wrongfully? Do you know why they hold on to that stuff? There's two reasons when they do that. Every agency that does that, which is pretty much every law enforcement agency, and so we're about to lose half the audience. Every law enforcement agency will overcharge people, even when they know they have no grounds to charge them. They will charge them and overcharge them, hoping that as they refer those charges to, if you live in an area that has district attorneys or county attorneys, depending on the system that you work under, they'll refer that to charges to the prosecuting attorney's office, hoping that the person will take a plea.
Mhm.
And if they don't, they will eventually drop those charges. But if they can get them to take a plea, then they don't have to worry about a lawsuit. Because if you take a plea deal, you're pleading guilty to what they say you did. And therefore, you don't have grounds to sue. And if you don't take the plea deal, they eventually will drop the charges because they don't want to risk losing in court, because if they lose in court, then the civil suit is a slam dunk. But what they haven't realized now is that when they drop the charges without actually taking it to a jury trial, the civil suit is a slam dunk.
Mhm.
So when you get an agency like the one you're talking about down in Texas, where they drop the charges and they dropped them this fast, they know the lawsuit's coming.
Yeah.
They're preparing themselves for the lawsuit. They're absolutely preparing themselves for the lawsuit. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that story. Skipper and I had a very interesting conversation after that. For those of you that don't know, you have to be very careful when you are in the accountability community, and my channel specializes in that. You have to make sure that you know, because Dale from Lackluster just went through this. They were trying to get Dale from Lackluster charged with harassment charges by telling people, because they were insinuating that he was telling people to go out and harass a particular law enforcement agency, which he wasn't doing. He was just simply telling the story. And if you're not careful, they will charge you. And even reporting something as a crime can get you in trouble, even if it's criminal, if you aren't the victim. So you do, you know, and so Skipper and I, you know, we talked about it, and, you know, I thought Skipper's call was hilarious, by the way, but you just have to be very careful in how you approach those things, because, you know, I know that there are people who in my audience who are, and I'm not talking about people that I interact with on a regular basis, but there are people in my audience that I know are somewhat unhinged.
Yeah.
So I have to be very careful about telling them to file complaints, because the last thing you want them to do is say, hey, I was watching Vet Nation, I was watching AVA, I was watching MBRR, and they told me to call you up, and you stupid motherfuckers, I'm going to show up, and, you know, next thing you know, you're in trouble because you incited this, in their eyes, you've incited this person to that action.
I do want to talk with you guys both offline, but I did get harassing communication this week, and I did contact my local sheriff from someone who you guys know that I've had a physical altercation with, so we can talk about that
Yes,
offline.
we definitely need to talk about that.
Oh man.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more of that. You know, AVA, keep us posted on your stuff. For those of you that have not been paying attention to my channel, and I'm begging you, please, I need all the support over on my side that I can get. I'm steadily growing, but I do want to hit that magical 5,000 subscribers. I have been told that hitting 5,000 changes you in the algorithm. It causes exponential channel growth. Part of the reason why I really want you guys to pay it. Go ahead, Skipper.
As an example, ever since I hit 5,000, I have been averaging about 25 to 50 subscribers every month increase.
Yeah, and mine even prior to that has been higher than normal. But I'm gonna do another live stream today on my channel about Baby Haven. And this is going to be a very hard one. And
My
I've already
phone's about to die, guys.
yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe you should try charging it and restarting it once in a while. But I'm going to be doing another one about Baby Haven today, a live stream today, and I've already warned the family that it's going to be uncomfortable. We're going to be having a very serious conversation about some things that were not handled well, and how to avoid that in the future. And they have said they want their case to be an example of how you don't do things when you're dealing with law enforcement and government employees. And I'm also have several dash cam videos of different stories, different cases of just involving the Minnesota State Patrol that I'm going to be releasing in the days to come. So, but today is going to be another story about Baby Haven and what not to do if you're ever experiencing law enforcement or county employees or city employees at your door. And that'll be about 4:15-ish my time. I'll be streaming that. So please make sure you tune in and show up. And I could speak for Skipper and AVA. Anytime you tune into one of our streams, likes for the algorithm, shares for the algorithm. And if you haven't joined a channel, pick a channel. If you prefer AVA, if you prefer Skipper's channel, become a channel member. If you prefer mine, become a channel member. Super chat, super thank yous, all of that stuff helps. It really does help. So I can't thank you guys enough for tuning in and appreciate it. We will be having another guest coming on pretty soon for Fish Nation Live. So we lost him.
No,
he is time slipped.
He froze.
So, but yeah, Skipper, get us out of here.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the questions, comments. And as always, thank you for being worth serving.